Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Scott Toy Guru Neitlich, or rather a Lego facsimile of me. I want to talk today about what's left for 6-inch collectors. Now, toy collectors don't always collect by scale, sometimes they collect by character, but I want to specifically zero in on 6-inch, which tends to be kind of the universal scale for adult collectors. I mean, I know there's 12-inch and 3 3/4, but we're talking about 6-inch. And one of the ways that I've tracked my wish list for 6-inch over the years is, well, I've made lists of figures that I wanted as part of a hypothetical collection. And over the years, like with Spider-Man Marvel Legends, I've slowly checked that list off. So I've had sort of predestined figures, that I knew I was going to buy. On the other hand, sometimes things come out that catch me by surprise, like this Elf figure from NECA that I was like, whoa, I have to get that. And it's kind of made me think, what's left? I mean, aside from the insane ideas that my friend Chris and John sent me for possible IP that has never been made as action figures, it kind of makes you wonder, are there properties left that have never been made in the 6-inch form factor? And, again, I'm specifically going with this form factor since it tends to be the one that kind of encompasses the most number of brands, where you can have the most number of different brands together. So, as an example, why don't we have a Sean Connery action figure from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade? Well, this is kind of a sort of a placeholder because this has actually been announced. We know this figure is coming from Hasbro, but I wanted to use it as an example because we've gone 30 years and never gotten that. Or even with Marvel Legends, there's quite a few figures that are just sort of missing. Like if you want to finish off X Factor or even X Force from the 90s, like I know I want to, well, we definitely need a few figures to do this. And, well, it's been many years and they still don't exist. Same thing like with Excalibur. We haven't been able to finish the team without having Rachel Summers. So, yeah, there's definitely some team building that needs additional figures, and I wanted to just point out a couple of random examples. Yes, I know I'm using my own personal love of X-Men and Spider-Man Marvel Legends, but it's a good way of illustrating how there are characters that we wanted for years, like I've been talking about wanting a Spot figure in my 6-inch line, and while I love that animated version, that's not what I want. What I want is this Spot. I want the classic one. I mean, if they could make Frogman, they could make Spot, right? Okay, so that's kind of what I mean by these figures that are missing, things that are part of a collection or an IP that's like, wow, I can't believe there's not a 6-inch figure for that. So one of the examples that I like to use a lot are independent comics. Things like, well, Savage Dragon from Image Comics, Eric Larson, one of my favorites. Valiant Comics is another good example with these really amazing comic book universes that have very few, if any, action figures. So yes, I've mentioned in many videos what a fan I am of Savage Dragon, and I've picked up the few figures that have been released over the years, such as when the Legendary Heroes line at Walmart finished off what Toy Biz was doing by offering us a couple characters, like Super Patriot here. But I've kind of had to fill in the gaps with my own creations. I'm not a very good customizer, but I wanted a Powerhouse figure. I wanted a Brainy Ape figure. So, boom, I created some. But there's so many characters from independent comics, and I know I'm using Dragon, but it's a good example because Overlord, I mean, you could do multiple heads, you could do head swaps, you could do with or without the cape, and, multiple versions of the same character. There's so much toyetic potential from a lot of these independent comic books. Perhaps they just don't sell well enough. I don't know. I've been, harping on that, specifically pushing Savage Dragon for years because, I mean, the characters are just so toyetic. Why we don't have a Powerhouse and Mighty Man action figure at this point honestly blows me away because they just look like they should be action figures. They should have been released as part of, Legendary Heroes or, non-Marvel Legends. Non-Marvel Legends. All right. So yes, while I'm a big fan of Chicken Head and, not quite Shazam, hey, Mighty Man would be a great figure. I mean, heck, his alternate identity is a female nurse. I mean, come on, we don't have anything like that. All right, I'll get off the Eric Larson Savage Dragon horse. Let's look at some other properties here. What about things like Maverick Top Gun? I mean, doesn't it seem like that should have an action figure line? Probably, the highest grossing movie, was it last year? I don't know, but it made a lot of movie. Well, this falls into the category, and I've actually hit on this on a few other videos, is that Tom Cruise, as an actor, does not allow his likeness rights to be used for toys. He's made some rare exceptions, But for the most part, even with pops like that Nick Morton pop from Mummy, he had pulled from the market after it was already released. So, yeah, it does kind of feel like we're missing action figures for a lot of action movies that Tom Cruise has been in over the years. And the reason we don't have any is because he won't allow it. On the other hand, sometimes you get actors who do kind of stupid things, like going on an anti-Semitic, anti-female rants, like which is basically why we don't have a proper Mel Gibson William Wallace figure from Braveheart. The closest we have are Pops, or this figure that's just supposed to be William Wallace, not actually supposed to be part of the movie or tied into the actor who played him, although it's clearly supposed to be. Spaceballs, that's kind of the gold standard of action figure lines that should exist that don't, and I've actually hit this in a couple different videos of why Spaceball toys can't exist. And while 3 3/4 would probably be the scale we would want Spaceballs at, I would still take 6-inch. I mean, to go with the Black Series figures, or, again, the fact that I like to have 6-inch. Just to quickly cover it, the reason that Spaceballs can't exist is because George Lucas and Mel Brooks had a handshake deal that there would be no Spaceballs toys, and even when the Star Wars license was transferred to Disney, they kind of considered this handshake deal part of it, even though it doesn't exist on paper. So no Lego Winnebagos, no action figures, no role play. Spaceballs is unfortunately off the table because if you attempt to get the license to make Spaceballs toys from MGM, which owns it, well, Disney will basically say, you can't make anything for any of our properties ever again, Mr. Toy Maker. We're not going to call it blackmail, but we're just going to call it we own everything. So if you make Spaceballs toys, we're going to prevent you from making anything else we own. So that's basically why we will never get Spaceballs toys. For some reason, Mel Brooks and now Disney is convinced that people would confuse these with Star Wars toys. So, yeah. The other one category for kind of MIA shelf figures are the one-offs, figures that belong to a brand that don't have a large category of characters. Perfect example are mascots, right? I mean, sure, you could look at companies like Kellogg's that has a lot, but they all tend to be their own one-off. And we've seen a few things here and there over the years. We've had Kool-Aid Pop Funko figures, which is actually pretty cool because it kind of works that way. And Jada Toys introduced a Chester Cheetah articulated action figure, and this is actually exactly what I'm talking about. So I would love to see Jada pick up more mascot figures. I think it'd be really cool. There's a lot of mascots that we have, a lot of affection to, and it'd be cool to have, the Jolly Green Giant fighting the Hulk, right? Another one that I've always thought would be great would be a Jeopardy action figure set, including both the set, and the host and the wall of questions. I mean, we've had, Alex Trebek pop figures before, but it feels like a trivia game show contest would just work so well for generic action figures, shall we say. I mean, we don't necessarily need a specific host. We just need the set, the 4 podiums, and the wall, because, it would be fun to have Boba Fett and Darkseid and, gosh, is that Daredevil? No, that's Claw there. Dr. Doom seems to be hosting in this shot. So, yeah, I always thought this would be a really fun display that you could, swap in and out. The other thing with one-offs are what I would call the public domain heroes. I mean, there are lots of toys out there of characters like Robin Hood, but as things like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen have done an extremely amazing job of showing, is the public domain heroes out there are beloved and just as cool as superheroes. So I've always wondered why companies don't take more advantage of doing things like Captain Nemo or, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, all sorts, it doesn't have to be the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen version. I mean, Zorro never appeared in that. But all of these characters have no royalties. They're free to use. They're mostly in public domain. Even Sherlock Holmes is in public domain now. So, go get them, toy companies. Even Tarzan could be done, even though they fight for that one. Here's another one that's sort of always been on my list. Paying homage to the old non-articulated green and tan army men, right? I mean, this is something that has been a standard toy for decades. I've always kind of thought, could you take these and do a 6-inch figure, highly articulated, No deco, just do it all in green. It would basically be like a highly articulated version of classic Army men, but you could pose them however you want. Think of the piece count. You come with the minesweeper and the bazooka and removable helmet and all that kind of stuff, so you could customize your figure. I don't know. It's a crazy idea I used to have. I've thrown it around to a few toy companies, but no one seems to be biting. I kind of thought it would be neat. Who knows? So what other ideas do you have? What concepts for 6-inch that's just never been done that you feel is missing from your shelf? Love to know in the comments below. Did I hit any of the ones that you've had ideas for? Again, let me know. Let's talk about it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. And I'll see you in the next video.